Welcome to Was I in a Cult? Part 75. So I started attending a church in 1994 to 1996, and somewhere in like 1996, 97, I ended up leaving that church, and I returned to that church in 1998. Probably should have never came back, but I did. My reputation was pretty much tainted, as they would call it, because I had left the church, and on top of that I was part of the LGBTQ plus community, so they all looked at me from that point of view as someone that was really going to have a hard time blending into their type of church. That church basically focused on helping drug addicts and alcoholics and people that came in and out of prison, but in the same sense, they weren't very LGBTQ plus friendly. So the LGBTQ plus individuals that were in that church were basically kind of like looked at as like the lepers in the church. Like, we were the ones that like really were lost, and we really needed to transform our very identity in order to continue serving the Lord in that church, which meant we had to like go to conversion therapy and do everything we could to change our identity and change who we were and no longer be LGBTQ plus individuals. Which what that basically meant for those of us that were truly lesbian, that meant that we were swearing to celibacy because we weren't planning on or wanting to marry a man, and marrying a woman would never be acceptable in that church. So basically the only way we could live for God would be to just be celibate. The only ones that truly were in the LGBTQ plus community that were able to like integrate were those who were bisexual, because they could choose that they would just be with the opposite sex because that was part of who they were anyways. But to me, that I just felt like that was like the part that was unfair, because like all of us that were true gay and lesbian individuals, we all had to like basically swear to never basically have a partner, and we would just be celibate the rest of our lives. And they would want us to change so much that they would want us to, pray for, our desires to change, and for us to really want to be with the opposite sex, and to actually want to, marry that man of God if we were a lesbian. And it was so damaging, to be honest. And like I said, those who did succeed in that church that supposedly changed their lives, they tried to say they were, like lesbian, but in reality they were really bisexual, because they could go either way, and so they chose to just suppress their attractions to women and, go with their attractions to men instead, since they had attractions for both in the first place, because that's what bisexual is about, right? It used to make me so mad, because I'd be like, I have literally no desires to be with a man, and like it doesn't matter how much I pray or try to like make myself, like I can't just make myself want to marry a man. And I'm like, it's not fair, because those who are bisexual, they can choose either or and supposedly be happy. Like, so there were these girls that were like gay or lesbian, and then they were, well, obviously they were bisexual, but they were using them as like the ultimate example of that they changed their lives because they would end up marrying a man or being with a man and supposedly being happy with that man. And it's like, well, that's because they're bisexual, not because they changed their orientation from being a lesbian. And then like I don't even know what it was like for anyone that was like trans in that sense, because I don't think we ever had any trans individual come to that church. And if they did, I don't know what or how they were going to expect for them to change, or Like, it's just like, I don't know, like, I always used to think about that and be like, what if someone comes in and they've changed and they're trans and then, like, now they're a woman, right? Like, what are they supposed to do? Like, go add the parts back on later? I mean, like, I don't, I don't get it. Like, how is that supposed to work? And so then I used to, like, think, well, the only way that I could probably make this work is if I find like a man that has like been changed into a woman, and then like then I could be with that person, if that makes sense. Like, I could be with someone that was trans because technically they're a man, and if it has to be a man and a woman, then okay, we can do that, right? Like, I don't know, I was like thinking all these things of like, how could I still be able to not be celibate the rest of my life, but have a relationship that was supposedly okay with this church and the people in this church. Like, how would that work? You know, it was like I spent my life thinking about that, you know, in that time frame. Like, how was I going to, you know, see my future, and like, how could I possibly find someone that I could actually live with or be with, because it definitely wasn't going to be a man that was born a man and that had all the man parts. Like, it's gonna have to be something different for me. And it was really sad for me being like 21 and thinking, how am I going to live my life? And thinking I wasn't going to be able to have a life because I was going to have to repress all of my own feelings and desires and attractions for basically the rest of my life if I wanted to please this God that they were teaching me about. And to please the people in this church, I was going to have to be something I was not for the rest of my life. And it's like super easy for someone that's straight or even bisexual to tell you that you can change when they don't have to. And I used to just pray and I would ask God, like, why would you make me with these feelings? And why would I have these attractions and not have the right attractions if you didn't want me to be this way? Why didn't you make me the right way? And then yet I would get scriptures like I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, and that God didn't make mistakes, and that He created me the way I am. So if He created me the way I am, then why is this church doing everything they can to make me change? Honestly, it would have been better for me to stay closeted in order to remain in that church, because it was so much harder once everyone in the church knew about my orientation, because then it became like something that was gonna have to change, and they had to monitor the progress of that change. And to me, like, this is super harmful. I mean, you know, even now that I look back, I think of how many people probably didn't make it through and make it out of these types of churches because they realized that they couldn't change and they wanted to please God so much, and it just causes so much trauma in your life to feel like you're not accepted, you're not welcome, and you're not loved. So my heart goes out to anyone watching this that is in a church or has been in a church that has done this to you. It's not okay, it's not right. And if you're in a church like that right now, I suggest you leave before more damage is done. There are so many places and even churches that will accept you for just as you are. Find those churches and find those places and leave everything that is saying that you can't be who you are. You are enough and you are loved, and God loves you just the way you are.